Hey friends, it's Melissa Morrow with Vintage Bee Design, and today I am taking this thrifted console, I guess it's a buffet server, and I am going to transform it into something very cottage decor, shabby chic, French country. You can see it's had some wear. I'm going to be using some techniques that I learned when I flew to Temecula, California recently for the Redesign with Prima and Wise Owl Painting Retreat, California Dreamin' 2023. It was fantastic. I was there with Chelsea from Apple Blossom Way and Brandy from Brush by Brandy, learning some new texture techniques that you can see on this box, and I'm going to be applying them to this console. I'll be using Redesign with Prima's decoupage paper Living Coral. I really like this one because it's got some nice patterning as well as some beautiful flowers, and I'm going to cut it up into many different pieces. This one tube of decoupage paper is going to cover the entire outside the way I'm going to use it, and I'm using my DIY liquid patina as my decoupage medium. You simply put it on, put your paper over it, and then when it's dry, you top coat it, and it is perfectly sealed. So I'll use my scraps on the drawers and the side of the piece, and we'll move on to the next part. I'm using Prima's chalk paste in the color Kingdom Moss and this gorgeous Victorian tiles stencil that is also by Prima. And I'm just using a simple scraper to sort of trowel it on. I'm not being precise. This is going to be a raised stencil, and we're going to go over it with another technique. So it's pretty haphazard and random, but that's exactly how we want it. With a chip brush, I'm going to use Lark Green chalk paste and simply go around these raised stencils and the edge of the decoupage paper, kind of hiding all those lines and transition points. I want this to have a lot of texture because when we sand back, we want to be able to see these variations of greens later. Next, I'm going to use Dixie Belle's Buttercream, which is a nice, warm, creamy off-white, and some texture medium. This would be your SaltWash or your Dixie Belle Sea Spray. And I'm going to mix it really thick. Once again, I'm going to mostly trowel this over. So using that same scraper that I did before, I'm going to go over all of the stenciled areas. I don't want to smooth this out. I want to leave lots of good texture. I do want to be able to sand down and see that stencil underneath. So I don't want to leave it too thick on those areas. But the idea here is texture, 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 texture. We will be sanding later. So we want to see the lumps and bumps because when we go to wax, that's what's going to make this piece really amazing. I will alternate between the scraper, a stencil brush, and a paintbrush with just Dixie Belle on it, the buttercream, to cover this entire surface. This is going to give me a variety of textures. Randomness is really the key. Next, we're going to move on while that is drying to preparing our molds. And I'm using In the Garden mold by Redesign with Prima and some creative paper clay. I'm going to batch these out. So I'm going to typically do about 6 or 8, maybe as many as 10 molds at a time, and then take them over to the dresser to layer them on the piece. Now, a lot of people will use cornstarch if their molds are sticking, if their clay is sticking in the mold. I haven't found that to be an issue when I'm using these specific products. I am just using some Titebond wood glue to glue them on. You see me open the door, double check that they're not going to crush my flowers. And I am layering them out in sort of a random fashion. I don't want this to be like alternating one style rose, the other style rose, one style rose, the other style rose. There are 3 different types and there are some greenery, and I'm going to mix and match these. Sometimes you'll have multiples. And here you can kind of see what it looks like when it's dried the next day. Those drips are from the wood glue. I used lots. And now I'm going to start covering it with the buttercream again to make it match the color of the rest of the piece. While all of that is drying, let's go ahead and decoupage the drawers. It's always nice to have something pretty when you open the drawers. So here I am using my DIY liquid patina, and I'll be using 2 more packs of the Living Coral decoupage paper. to do these drawers. I'm gonna line it up so it goes up the sides. Again, using that same scraper. I'm just gonna make sure it is really set, especially in the corners. Then I will line up the next piece right next to it. The reason it took 2 sheets is because I decided to go up the sides. You might be able to do, and these drawers are also really big. You might be able to do drawers with 1 sheet, but in this case, I wanted to be sure they were really beautifully lined. So this is how I finished it. To trim this, I'm going to use that same scraper and a straight edge, a razor blade, and I'm just going to trim the back areas. For the inside of the doors, I have painted those in DIY Paints Aviary, and now I am using the Renata stencil, which was designed by Kasha, to stencil the inside of the doors. You might notice that I'm using the swirling method with very little paint on my brush, which makes this very simple and quick to do. The pouncing method has a tendency to push paint under the stencil, and since we're doing this on the lower part of the door, I want to be sure that it is not too runny or drippy, and you can see it leaves a beautiful finish. I'm now going to add some of DIY Paint Dark Wax, and I know it seems like there are a lot of steps in a project like this, and I will say that there certainly are. It seems like you're almost done and then you do one more thing. And that's kind of how I work in general. I work until I'm happy with the finished project, and I just keep adding until it's however it is in my mind or whatever I feel like it's missing. So we're just going to use a stencil brush and we're going to go around everything. Then we're going to use some DIY white wax and we're going to sort of highlight the high areas. So this is just done in a sweeping motion. Then when that's dry, we're going to go back and add some of the gold wax by DIY. And we're going to do this sort of in those shadowy areas and along the edges. This creates a lot of dimension, which you'll see. And the gold is not overpowering. Anywhere there's a shadow is where we want to add it. Now it's time for me to address the top of the piece. I do not feel like sanding this, and even if I did, I wanted a little more rustic for this piece. So my husband brought over some fence wood. We replaced our fence last year, and we have piles and piles of fence wood on the side of the house. So I'm simply removing the nails, and then I'm going to run this through the drum sander. I thought I had footage of that, but I don't. So just know I did not hand sand these. I did run them all through the drum sander. Then I'm cutting them to the width of just slightly longer, about an inch longer than the width of the top of the console, because I'm going to run these vertically, not horizontally. After all of my wood has been cut and sanded well on the drum sander, I'm going to add some of that Tite Bond glue and put it back on, keeping it level in the back. Then I will use a mnemonic nail gun to attach each piece in multiple places. The nails really are just there to work until the glue is dry, but this top will not be coming off. And I just go down the line, having pre-laid these out, and attach them individually. While I have a variety of stains at my disposal, I am choosing to use Liquid Patina Dark and Decrepit by DIY Paint because I hate staining. This is much more like painting. I just paint it on. I don't have to wipe it off. You could do 2 layers if you want to make it darker, but I love the finish that this provides. So I simply paint it completely on the wood and we are good to go. And so here's a brief look at where we started. And here's a peek at where we finished. Now I didn't take pictures of inside the doors and inside the drawers, but I did dark wax all of those areas as well to keep the rustic look. And I painted the inside of the cabinet and the shelf as well. I love how this piece came out. It's got so much texture and I just feel like it all came down so nicely finished. I did paint the hardware. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, let me know what you think about the noises and leaving them in. I got that idea from my husband's videos. See you next week.